What's going on, Miami Dolphins fans? Welcome back to the Fins Up Network. It's Ben Morgan, and we're wrapping up Bears Week with final preview and prediction video. Gonna get some viewer questions that were submitted. Gonna be giving my final score prediction for Sunday's Dolphins Bears games. But I want to hear from you as well. I want to hear your score predictions. How do you think the game's gonna play out? Drop those in the comments. Let's load that comment section up with a ton of Dolphins wins, a tons of Dolphins fins up. Let's get those wins going. Let's move to 6-3 on this season. Let's jump right into this puppy because I want to hit to some viewer questions that were submitted. And the first one I've got this week is who has a bigger impact on the game between the two newcomers? So obviously Jeff Wilson, Bradley Chubb. My answer is going to be Bradley Chubb, but I actually think both guys might get a decent amount of playing time in this one. I think it was on Friday. It might have been on Thursday or Friday. Mike McDaniel said that the game plan creation actually started before the trades were finalized. So obviously, Jeff Wilson doesn't know the exact playbook, but there's definitely similarities from his time in San Francisco, working with Mike McDaniel, the Shanahan tree. A lot of it is very similar. So the learning curve probably shouldn't be huge for him. And Bradley Chubb, of the two, likely has the easier transition if he's used in a straight up pass rushing, edge setting role. So I would say that there's a chance that a guy like Myles Gaskin, Savon Ahmed, whichever of the two is active, we've likely seen one of the other inactive every week. Maybe one of those guys gets a few more touches than what we've seen throughout the year, but it isn't going to be long before we see the Raheem Mostert, Jeff Wilson split essentially take over. And my assumption is that Raheem Mostert keeps the bulk of those carries. I don't think it's going to be as one-sided as the Mostert-Edmonds split was, but I still think Mostert is going to get the most at the end of the day. But if I have to pick one for this game, I give Chubb a slight edge. Next question. Any chance we use Channing Tindall in a spy role against Justin Fields? So now, based on my memory on this, the last time we saw Dolphins use a spy against the quarterback was the Sunday night game against the Steelers with Kenny Pickett, and they used Andrew Van Ginkel in that role. So based on that, and the fact that we haven't seen Channing Tindall snaps really increase recently, my answer to the question is probably not. Now, would I like to see it? That's a different question, as I would like to see Tindall get some more playing time, especially in one of these matchups against the dual threat quarterback, against a guy like Justin Fields, because there's really not that many linebackers in the league and not many linebackers on our team in general that can hang with a guy of that athleticism when he decides to take off and run. Now, if you look at in general at Channing Tindall, at some point in time in his career with the Dolphins, the snaps have to go up. So they have to come at some point, but there's a chance that that may not even happen this season yet. Who knows? So for the time being, since we haven't seen much that really points in the direction of more snaps coming for Tindall, unfortunately, at this point in time, I've got to say probably not. Well, let's jump into the next question. Another Chubb question. Where can we expect to see Bradley Chubb and Jaelan Phillips line up defensively? So for this one, I don't necessarily think that we'll see each one stick to one particular side. We've actually seen both of these guys line up more on the right side of the defense, which is against the left side of the offensive line. But if you look at it all, neither of them have been really exclusive to one side or another. And looking at Jaelan Phillips, since I obviously have more insight on the Phillips side of this than the Bradley Chubb, but we've seen Jaelan Phillips line up all over the place this season. He's been in that wide nine outside of the tight end. He's been lined up inside of against a guard. Obviously, we've all seen him fall back into coverage. But I think at the end of the day, Josh Boyer is going to move these guys around, and more so in an effort to keep the defense or keep the offense guessing. And that could be especially important right now if we see less blitz, less zero blitz, with the belief that we'll be able to produce now more pressure with four than we ever have. Now that we've got both Bradley Chubb and Jaelan Phillips, keep them guessing, produce with four. So we'll have to see how things play out here against the Bears tomorrow. But I don't necessarily think it's going to be one guy sticking to the same side throughout the course of the game. Let's jump into the next question here. Are we going to get Byron Jones back this year? I'll say this. My biggest fear with Byron Jones is that he hasn't even been able to return to practice yet. He remains on the PUP list. So if he does make it back, is he truly going to be 100%? How rusty will he be without any in-game action? Will the Dolphins even trust him to be on an island against an opposing team's wide receiver? Because that's kind of what we got used to seeing with him, that ability to do that. If he comes back this year, we may see a version of Byron Jones that we're simply not used to. And that is honestly my biggest fear. And one thing that I'll add to this too is that keep in mind, Miami didn't make a move for a cornerback before the trade deadline. They didn't try to claim Sidney Jones, who was released at around that same time. So to me, that means one of two things. One, they feel confident enough to believe that at some point in time this season, Byron Jones will be back. Or two, they feel confident enough in the guys that they currently have and didn't see it as a priority to address the position. I mean, look at what's been happening recently. Xavier Howard has returned. He's been his strong self. Keon Crossan, Kader Kohu have recently made their way back. Noah Igbenogany hasn't been a complete liability in coverage. So there's a chance that they're simply happy with what they have. And by adding Bradley Chubb and by getting that pressure now, hopefully with 4 guys, being able to drop more guys back into coverage, maybe they just feel comfortable with what they have. So unfortunately, I didn't have a great answer for you there. I more so laid out some thoughts on the situation. But unfortunately, I can't do much more than that right now. But let's get to what we came here for. The final prediction of the game. I've got the Miami Dolphins winning this puppy by 10. 27-17. All right, now this is that stretch of games where we just cannot have a letdown. You stay disciplined. Don't have those stupid penalties. Quit lining up off sides. Don't beat yourself. And there's no reason we lose this game on Sunday. Focus on taking away their running game. We talked about it all week. Khalil Herbert, Justin Fields. Focus on taking those guys away early and have the defense show up early. Like we've been saying, the second half defense for the Dolphins has been really damn good. Start trying to do some of that stuff early. And like I said, maybe that happens with Bradley Chubb here, but attempt to build the early lead for Chicago to become more one-dimensional. And if you think about it, it's the one dimension that they struggle with the most. You saw the super low passing totals on the scroll throughout the video. They have very few passing yards. They have no wide receivers that can outright dominate a game. And here's the deal. Take advantage of their nearly league worst run defense. If we get that ground game going early, man, get Raheem Mostert going like he has been. Mix in Jeff Wilson. If Ahmed or Gaskin is active, get those guys going early. Because if we can get that ground game going early, we already know how dangerous Tua Waddle Hill is when the ground game is not going. Get that ground game going. That trio becomes even more dangerous, especially with the play action. So like I said, now is not a time for a letdown. Let's get this win. Let's move to 6-3, Dolphins fans. But like I said, I want to hear your score predictions in the comments as well. Drop those. Get subscribed if you haven't already. And then I will be back at some point on Sunday with my game recap and top takeaways from the Dolphins-Bears game. But that is what we've got for today, Dolphins fans. Enjoy this one, and we will see you at some point on Sunday. Fins up.